Welcome into the Big Fight Breakdown here on ProBox TV. We're at it twice a day. Download the ProBox TV app right now. Never miss any of your boxing news. So what's the news swirling about? That's right, the big fight. Vergil Ortiz versus Serhii Bohachuk in Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay. Are we putting the cart before the horse? Big fight coming up, but this one is absolutely fantastic. What do we mean? To help me break it down, got Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri here in studio, the champs, and then the coach joining us via Zoom, Teddy Atlas. So the cart before the horse part is what we're talking about in terms of Terence Crawford. Turkey Al-Sheikh says, well, if it can't make Canelo happen, Terence Crawford versus Vergil Ortiz. Paulie, it's a done deal. All he has to do is get past this wrecking ball of a puncher.
Nothing in the way. Only Serhii Bohachuk, right? That's all. Hey, listen, Turkey Al-Sheikh means well. I love it's the natural enthusiasm. It's the ignorance is bliss sort of enthusiasm. He just wants to make all the best fights, but sometimes you got to understand you can't put the cart before the horse before certain fights. I love his enthusiasm. I love his tenacity for want to make these fights. We already saw when he was talking about Wilder and AJ on the Zhang Wilder card what happened. Later that night, Zhang ends up knocking out Wilder and imploding that. So I know a lot of times boxing has done this in the past, even before Turkey Al-Sheikh, but usually you have like a gimme before those kind of setup fights, And in this case, this is no gimme. Serhii Bohachuk is 22 wins, 22 KOs. Vergil Ortiz, was it 20 wins, 20 KOs?
21 wins, 21 knockouts.
This is a 100% knockout streak with the exception of when Adams caught Bohachuk and knocked him out, right? But when he was behind in that fight as well. This is an explosive fight. Could Vergil Ortiz win it? Sure, he's going to be the favorite. He could win it. I'm not going to say probably, but you favor him. But it could be a more dynamic fight than Vergil Ortiz versus Crawford anyway. This styles in this fight, I think about it and I'm like, this could be bombs away. It could end right away because both guys are huge punchers. It could debilitate into a war. Both guys are capable. Both guys are tenacious. Both guys are big punchers.
Now, before we use up all the X's and O's, I got to go to the coach, Teddy Atlas. Always complains I go to him last. I'm going to you second. Two hard punchers like this. Two guys with a knockout style like the champ said. Is it about who finds the button in this fight?
It's always about the delivery, not the power. Again, I know you guys love this quote, so I'll give it to you again. Cus D'Amato, the great Cus D'Amato, my mentor, used to say, Teddy, power punch is like having a military weapon. You need a missile, something to guide it to the target. Otherwise, it has no value. It'll just blow up and make a big hole in the ground, and when it rains, you could go swimming. So, all for that, yeah. It's about the delivery system. It's about all the other abilities, traits, talents that go into being a puncher. I often say that sometimes it's a great gift being a puncher, having power. Punchers are born, they're not made. But it's also can be a great curse because sometimes when you have that great gift, you don't develop the other things around it that you're going to need one day because it's not always going to win the fight for you. You're not going to knock everyone out. And sometimes it is a curse that you don't learn. And there's a bunch of fighters. We could go over a list for an hour of guys that it was actually a curse for. But it always comes down to who can get that power to the target. And I'll tell you something about what Paulie said. He's right. Bohachuk, he is a solid guy. Yeah, he's got all knockouts, but he's a guy who does things fundamentally right. He does everything behind the jab. Everything behind the jab. And we know that you set the table with the jab and you eat, with punches behind the jab. So he fundamentally does bring the goods of more than just power. Now, Vergil is more explosive. He's more explosive, more athletic. But he also is technically pretty sound. And I'll tell you something interesting. We're all looking for the left hook. I know I am. The left hook of Vergil. And for me, one of the reasons I got to favor Ortiz, besides that he's 21-0 with 21 knockouts, that ain't a bad reason. But anyone in front of him, he has a good chance of getting out and getting out with what? A left hook to the body. And Bohachuk, his fundamentals are to put the earmuffs on to cover up good, which is nice. But against the body puncher, when you do that, sometimes you identify as a heavy bag. And there's a lot of body to find. The left hook behind the elbow or the left hook changed to a little bit of a hybrid left uppercut inside the elbow. And those are going to be options that will be there because of the style of Bohachuk. They will be there for Vergil Ortiz. But I'll finish with this. Ortiz has obviously more than just the left hook to the body. I wouldn't be surprised if him and Robert Garcia, who's doing a heck of a job training all the fighters that he's training, I wouldn't be surprised if they came up with something to nullify the jab of Bohachuk. And that's something for me would be a counter right hand over the jab. So I'd be looking for that too. The counter right hand. In other words, take away the best weapon of Bohachuk, his jab to set everything up and counter that. If you do that, well, you're making it a much easier night. Either way, it's a really intriguing fight.
When you look at it, Chris, right now, the odds about plus 250 if you took Bohachuk. I know you like the versatility of Ortiz. Do you like the versatility, or do you like the odds on an upset, which we always talk about we're seeing more and more of in boxing? Why would you take the dog in this one?
Well, I mean, listen, we upsets on certain cards. This ain't one of them. So I'm leaning towards Ortiz in this fight. Teddy made so many great points about what these guys are good at, what they're not so good at. Bohachuk, for me, he's been knocked out. And you know what he got knocked out with? Teddy, what did he get knocked out with?
Left hook to the body.
No, it was actually to the head, but it was
left hook.
Right. But it was a left hook. And if you look at his style, his elbows are a little bit flared. He's got very long torso, like you said, Teddy. He's more of a puncher than anything. He really wants to get in there. Leaves a lot of openings. And for a guy like Vergil Ortiz, I mean, he's so dynamic. He's so athletic. He's so explosive. I lean towards him for all those reasons. But Bohachuk, you mentioned it on top of the show, Jimmy, wrecking ball. That guy's in front of you. He hits hard. Two-fisted sledgehammer-type punches. He actually did go to decision one time, guys, his last fight.
Mendoza. Yeah.
12 rounds. Yes. Mendoza has a chin of granite. The kid took such a beating. His jaw was swollen out to here, blood out from his nose and his mouth. Bohachuk put a beating on Mendoza that night. Mendoza's tough, man. He gave Tim Tszyu a good fight. Bohachuk dominated him.
That's what I'm saying about this fight.
You can't look past this guy.
The more rounds this goes, they're just
He
going
knocked
to
out
crush each
Fedor.
other.
Don't forget that.
Brian Mendoza knocked out Fedor. Exactly, Teddy. So also, now we got to think about activity, right? Activity plagues fighters all the time. We talk about activity. Guess what? Vergil Ortiz, he's been in the ring twice in the past, 8 months. He was very inactive before that. 2 rounds. Yeah. 2-round destructions. 2 one-round destructions in a row. Bohachuk went 12 with Brian Mendoza half a year ago. So now you got a guy who's active, who's a wrecking ball, who had a good win against a very, very tough guy that he dominated. And you got Vergil Ortiz, not as active.
You're making good points, champ.
Jimmy was asking, how do you pick the dog? I'm telling you.
Is he changing your mind, Paulie?
I mean, okay.
You favor Ortiz.
Ortiz. Right. It's hard to pick against Ortiz, right? But we have, like you said, we have had upsets. I know we're not on these cards, but this is a would it shock you if Bohachuk wins? That wouldn't shock me. But yes, I favor Ortiz. You made a good point here because Ortiz having not gone rounds, especially of late, Bohachuk is battle tested as well.
Yes.
Like he's ready for that kind of beat you down type
also
of fight,
28
drag
years
out.
Old, 28, 29 years old.
So he's in his prime too. If you drag Ortiz into the kind of fight Bohachuk's been in, can Ortiz handle it? We don't know yet, right? I mean, Ortiz is used to blowing you away.
Never gone past the 9th round.
So if this fight drags into that, you expect Ortiz to be able to handle it, right? Because Ortiz, he's propped up on a pedestal as one of the futures of boxing for a reason. But we still haven't seen it. We know Bohachuk can go through that kind of drag-out fight. If they go into it against each other, drag each other down against each other, with all rounds, beating each other up, I'm telling you, it's going to take a lot out of both guys. This could potentially become some kind of fight, man. I'm telling you, stylistically, make right. But like I said, there's also the other side of it where they both hit so hard that the fight could end in 1 round if somebody gets caught, right? It's that kind of fight, but you really want to see it because the explosiveness on both sides is so much that it really, really does excite you. I want to ask Teddy one thing about the left hook. Bohachuk got a good right hand, guys. Is that an answer to offset the left hook power of Vergil Ortiz? Maybe to make him keep it home a little bit.
100%, Paulie, because sometimes, when you have a good left hook, sometimes, or good anything, you can get a little carried away with it. You get a little intoxicated with it. And the worst thing you can do, or one of the worst things, there's a few of them, that you can do in the ring is to lead with a left hook, especially if it's a little fat. Lead with a left hook in front of a guy. You know why? Because the right hand is there. And straight beats round. I'll say it again. Straight beats round. That's the one thing I learned in my geometry class. I remember that. The teacher got that through to me. So you throw a left hook, which is round, a little bit fat in front. That straight right hand can get there. And the best thing or the worst thing about it, you don't see it because you're in the middle of throwing your own and you don't see that straight right hand. That is the danger point. And that would be one of the main things I'd be working on if I was Robert Garcia, and I'm sure he is, not to let that, to be cognizant of what Paulie Malignaggi just brought up.
Now, Chris, when you look at this, let's look at it a little bit tactically when it comes to Terence Crawford, right? He had an audition at 154, essentially won his fight at 154, but snapped an 11-fight KO streak, right? Went the distance in a very, very tough fight with Israel Madrimov. Is this fight a similar kind of thing? We're not just seeing it as a fight, but maybe an audition for the Crawford fight. What's your thought on that?
Well, potentially. I don't think people were really thinking about Crawford and Vergil Ortiz too much until Serhii Bohachuk jumped in before that fight and mentioned it. Yeah, it was a thought process. If Crawford was going to stay at 54 and he's going to try and collect the belts, that a Vergil Ortiz fight could materialize. But once Serhii says it, because he's been able to make so many of these fights happen that we never even thought of, didn't think could happen, it kind of can come to fruition, or at least comes to you mentally. But in terms of the kinds of names and money that Crawford is looking for, Vergil Ortiz isn't there yet. He's not that kind of guy. So unless Crawford decides, you know what, staying at 54, I'm fighting all these young studs, I'm going to collect these belts, I'm going to unify another division, that fight doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now. If Vergil gets a big win, absolutely, but I feel like he needs more.
Can he unify this division?
Well, that's a question. If he decides that that's the route he's going to go, I should say. Not saying that he was going to go through it.
Chris, you're thinking in a logical way, responsible way. You always do. Both of you always do. But you're forgetting for 1 second the new element in this game of boxing called Serhii Bohachuk. That he's with his money. It doesn't matter if you're there the way it used to matter. You're right. It used to matter that you had to be there to be able to draw that kind of money. You had to have those kind of signature fights. You had to have, been through the fire. You had to have proven yourself out on that marketplace to be that guy to bring something that so far Boots Ennis hasn't quite gotten there yet. But again, that all gets thrown out the door now with Serhii Bohachuk, because if he thinks that's the fight that he wants and that the fans want, that's it. That's all that matters, because he will put the money there to get both guys to put their signature on a contract.
And if you notice if you really notice something with Serhii Bohachuk's cards, a lot of upsets because they're very, very evenly matched fights at a world-class level, no less. So it's basically, we've got that model here at ProBox, but they're doing it at a world-class level. So you're seeing more and more upsets. And Jimmy, you mentioned a point about how Crawford looking a certain way. He looked like maybe he struggled at 154 against Madrimov. I thought Madrimov was an excellent fighter. I thought they both boxed very, very well, and it was a close fight. But I'll tell you what you notice, if you make top guys fight top guys, the next best top guy, not a top guy against the so-so top guy, that's what boxing has become. When they finally face each other, it's like, it's a super fight. Because then the winner of that fight goes back and fights like the 5th or 6th ranked guy down. And he does that for a couple of years, and then maybe he'll take another big risk and a couple of years later. What you're seeing right now is fight after fight after fight, top guys matching each other. When you have that, you're not going to see anybody go on a run where they look good every single fight for 10 straight fights, 20 straight fights, like you did in the past. When you make these kind of matchups consistently, nobody's going to have that kind of run. If you look at it, boxing's always done it this way. Even in the Ray Leonard days. He beat Benitez, then he beats, I forget the guy's name afterwards, Finch.
Yeah, there's a reason we don't remember.
He beat Finch. He was a good fight, decent fighters. Ted, you probably remember these guys. Guys like Finch, Bruce Finch, and a couple of guys. And then you get, Duran, and then Hearns. Dude, when you do that all the time, if you imagine you're fighting those guys back to back to back to back, nobody's going to go on any kind of run. Either you're going to get knocked off or you're not going to look perfect every single time.
Or you're going to need a rest. You're going to need
But you got entertainment. You got entertainment.
This is where the pitfall comes in of like Turkey has mentioned he likes the UFC regimen, right? You get the top guys fighting each other. That's why the UFC champions get knocked off all the time. Nobody goes on runs, like you said. There's very few guys. You got a couple guys. Anderson Silva went on that big long run for a while, but you don't see that as much anymore because a lot of these guys knock each other off because there are no easy fights. If you're the champion, you're fighting number one contender next fight.
That's why those UFC, to your point, those UFC fighters have a lot of losses. A lot of them. You look at their record, you say, wait a minute, this guy's got 8 losses. My God, what am I watching? And then you find out I'm watching a really good fighter because he fought all top guys in those 8 losses, and he became a top fighter. He learned how to fight.
And Teddy, you brought up a great point because you can't take parts of the UFC style but leave away others. So one of the parts of the method to UFC and its greatness is that it allows guys to lose. You don't have to have an O at the end of your record. We can't have these fights. We can't have these
100%.
champions that all have. We got 3 guys in a weight class. All 3 of them are champions. They're all undefeated. How is that possible?
True.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you, Chris. Again, jumping off of another great point the champ made. You can't take a little piece and then not have the other piece. You know what else we have right now with Turki Al-Sheikh that they don't do in the UFC? They fight each other and they actually get paid. You don't have Dana White withholding money. You actually get paid. So these guys are fighting each other, making the money they deserve. Yes, taking risks, giving the fans the fights they want. Consistently, action fights, upsets across the board. They come right back. It doesn't matter. Jarrell Miller just came right back and got a draw against Ruiz after being knocked off by Dubois. So he's back in the circle of trust to take a meet the parents quote in there. And you know what? The guys are getting paid, so it's worth their while to take the risks. Unlike in the UFC, you're going to take all the model, make it better. Make it better. And Turki Al-Sheikh is making it better.
Another thing, when everybody talks about the win streaks in the UFC, spent a lot of time there. The situation is Belal Muhammad just won the title, 34 years old. Is he going to go on a run? No, he wins it much later. A lot of guys spend their prime in the UFC working their way up. It takes 9 fights to get a title shot. By the time you're there, a lot of your best years are behind you. In boxing, we're seeing guys in their physical primes a lot of times having these mega fights. That's a huge difference. And when you guys look at it, I want to ask you, Paulie, about this fight in particular. It's one of those times where when you get a 154-pound division that's so stacked, you said, Chris, that maybe right now Ortiz isn't there. Was Madrimov there? I mean, did your average fan know who Madrimov was? Who at 154 might make a more appealing fight for Crawford in this field?
You know what?
Or is he just as good?
Tim Tszyu is a very big name now in Australia, and he was really making a big name. I still think if it wasn't for that crackerjack box doctor in Vegas, he doesn't even lose the Fundora fight. But you got Fundora, obviously he's two belts, and he's also a lot of fun. Fundora, yes, he's got limitations, but he's one of the more fun fighters to watch in the sport, so he's in there as well. You've got, I don't know, the Spence rematch possibly, you know what I'm saying, with Crawford, right? You got some options at 154 pounds, man. Yeah, Bohachuk may upset Vergil Ortiz, and then he puts himself in there. I mean, this is a good weight class. Madrimov, Tszyu, Bohachuk, Vergil Ortiz, and they're all relatively young, right? Or very young.
Very young. It's young weight class.
This is a young, strong weight class. As a matter of fact, Crawford...
I think every one of those guys is 30 or under.
Crawford is the old-timer here.
Yeah, 100%.
But dude, I know people are criticizing Crawford for Saturday night. I thought he boxed so well, considering he's undersized in that fight, and it showed that he's undersized, but was so intelligent, and so was Madrimov. I mean, that was a real chess match.
You're right.
But also being 36, 37, we're talking about the age, and he finished strong. Normally, it's the older guy. The legs go. They can't keep up the. He was the guy who was closing out the fight strong. So you got to speak to that. But Jimmy, to that one point about Vergil Ortiz saying he was not there yet, I just mean commercially. I think skill-wise, physically, absolutely. I think he's in his physical prime. Skill-wise, absolutely there. I think he just needs more success. Because listen, guys, he spent like 18 months dealing with bad health problems, falling out of big fights. He would be a much bigger star right now if not for that snake-bitten year that he had with those fights falling out with the 47-pounder. Stanionis, excuse me, the other champion. So they were trying to unify there, or they're trying to get that title fight going. That kept falling through. So Vergil Ortiz missed a big chunk of his commercial marketability due to that year, which has nothing to do with him, obviously, not his fault. But so that's what I mean by him not being there.
Teddy, what I'm very curious about, the name we're not talking about, a lot of people have talked about when it comes to Crawford, is Boots Ennis. Of course, a very experienced, very skilled welterweight. Is he kind of on an island by himself at 147 right now? Any chance he moves up to 54 or someone moves down to meet him? What's your thought on it?
He was on an island. That's a good way of putting it, actually. A good analogy. He was on an island because he was too good. He's that good. He really is. He was too talented and too good for any of the guys who were already there, like Chris and Paulie are talking about, as far as marketable, as far as where you could make the big money, where you could sell the big money. The guys that were already there, that already had the signature fights, Boots Ennis, that wasn't there yet. He didn't have those signature fights where everyone on the street knew him, where you could feel safe about making him in a big fight, because the other side of it, whoever you were going after, Crawford, whoever, to go in there, they know that it would be a huge risk and not quite the reward that has to be there, because he's not there as far as marketability yet. So in that way, yeah, he was on an island. But guess what? Somebody just pulled a raft up to his island. A guy named Turkey Al-Sheikh. He just brought a raft up there and he said, come on, I'll get you off that island. And he's off that island now because his name is
Teddy,
coming out of the mouth of Turkey Al-Sheikh. His name is now in the mix. And when his name's in the mix, you know Turkey Al-Sheikh is thinking possibly with him and Crawford. We're all taking for granted it's him and Ortiz, but it could be him and Crawford, or it could be him with somebody else mixing in there. But I believe he's now off that island because of that. Otherwise, he would have been relegated for a little bit longer. Not as long as Tom Hanks, in that movie, Paulie.
Castaway.
That's for you, Paulie. But, go ahead, take it away.
Wilson!
I knew someone was going to yell it.
No, I think Teddy's making some excellent points. These guys are making some great points. That's why I love working with them. Here's what I'm going to say about Turkey here in this situation. I notice he likes to draw at big names. Yep. If you're going to continue the sport, you've got to draw at the contenders in general and lift up guys as well. He's doing that a terrific job there, mentioning Jaron Ennis' name. But you don't have to force Jaron at 154 pounds. Listen, Stanionis, who I just mentioned, versus Ennis is an excellent, excellent fight at 147 pounds. You don't have to go searching for the shiny objects at 154 for Ennis. You can make Stanionis against Ennis, and it is an excellent fight at welterweight. Now, if you're going to pull up the life raft to the welterweight division in general, because it's not just the Jaron Ennis that you pull up the life raft to, you go there and you're going to pull it up to the welterweight division because everybody left, so it is an island. Take Stanionis on that life raft with you, and let's make that fight. Because that is a fun fight, and that's an opportunity for Ennis to continue to build up his profile as well, or maybe Stanionis to start building his profile as well. Because I think Stanionis is an excellent fighter who gets no credit at all and never gets mentioned. Only Ennis gets mentioned.
He was also statement by that year.
But both guys are really good welterweights, just stuck on that island. They might as well fight. And the guy who comes out with the win, either they can do a rematch if it's a great fight, the bigger profile now can start getting mentioned, maybe with the 154-pounders where everybody seems to be gravitating to. Do it from the foundational standpoint. They're both welterweights right now, and they both got fun, effective, exciting styles.
Paulie, something to your point, because now we just bounce off each other now. We're playing ping pong over here. What you just brought up a point, and that's something that happens all too often with boxing and boxing promotions is, you mentioned that the shiny things. Everybody's looking for the shiny things. Boxing often becomes a smash and grab job. You're looking at the shiny thing, and I'm gonna take that and run with it. Instead of building up the sport for the future, there's no thought of what's gonna happen in the future. You're trying to smash and grab now with the names that are there. And then what happens when they age out? What happens when they lose? What happens when now you got nothing?
Built up anything
now,
behind them.
and you didn't follow up. You had nothing built up behind that to follow these guys. There's so much talent in this younger division, just below that cream of the marketability crop that needs to be built up. The guys like Jaron Ennis, who've been sitting on the outside, on the island of his own for 2 years. And I love that you said that. That was a really good one. So, the island of his own.
Stanionis is there with him.
Stanionis was supposed to be a household name now because of the Vergil Ortiz fight. Whether he won the fight or not, it's going to be an awesome fight. People would know who he is. We're missing out on the opportunity of a lot of really good young fighters that are not getting their shine yet. So to your point, Paulie, exactly. I mean, if Turkey could stay a little more attention to these guys in and around these weight classes that aren't just those shiny objects, the future of the sport is bright.
You know, I grew up in Central California. I was in the fruit business. That's what my family did. You know what they said? It's easy to pick fruit. It's hard to plant seeds.
Boom.
That is the way it goes. That's what we
that.
do. That's right. Dropping knowledge here at ProBox TV. Download the app. Watch us every single day, twice a day. We'll see you next time and enjoy the fights.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday Night Fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, August 21st. Former Unified World Champion Swift Jarrett Hurd takes on former Unified World Champion Jason Banana Rosario. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at ProBoxTV.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.